Welcome to the Project Mom Podcast. I'm your host, Emily Gorey, mom of a sweet baby girl and an ever-evolving entrepreneur. On this show, we will explore the intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. We will share stories of moms just like you and me with the goal of fostering community and comfort in knowing that we are not alone in our experiences. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to ensure you get all the updated episodes and releases. Welcome to today's episode of the Project Mom Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Amberlee Venti. She's the CEO and founder of Pippy Sips, a company that has created a compact and discreet all-in-one solution for pumping on the go. The Maya allows you to pump, cool, and store your breast milk in one convenient product. Amberlee is a mental health clinician working within the opioid epidemic who realized just how hard it was to pump breast milk when she went back to work and decided that there had to be a better way. So she invented the Maya and her company, Pippy Sips. So Amberlee, welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Emily. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm really excited to learn more about this product that you've created because I think there is such a need for it in the market. So I'm excited to dive into this and learn about it. But before we do that, I want to start off by diving into your story and your journey as a mom, in your career, and eventually how you became an entrepreneur. So perhaps let's start there. Let's start with, in your working journey, when did you add motherhood into that? And how did that ultimately influence your experience in the workforce?
Yeah, I think that actually is a big part of the story, just the way things happened, how they converged. So I got pregnant, I guess. Yep, it's 2011. I'm so bad at both things. Mom brain right there.
Yeah. It never goes away.
Yep. All right. 2011. I'm like, I can't remember when I was pregnant. I can remember when my baby was born, but
for sure.
But I did get pregnant about 4 years after grad school. And so I was like well into my career. I had kind of had like my first job out of graduate school where I was a therapist in a residential facility. I learned a lot there. And it's really interesting. So I kind of, at the end of my first job after graduate school is when I got pregnant. And I got my first promotion when I was pregnant. I did not tell my employer that I was pregnant.
Yeah.
But because I was too early on, I hadn't hit the 12-week mark, but I had a good feeling because I work in mental health. So most people are women in their childbearing age. So that's very common for you to be surrounded by pregnant women or women who just had babies. And my boss who gave me the promotion was pregnant when she gave me the promotion. So in my brain, I was like, I think this will go over okay. When I tell her, sure, she'll be surprised that I accepted this position newly pregnant. But I also think she'll be very supportive, which was always my experience with her. And I know not everybody's experience with an employer.
Yeah.
So I told her when I could tell her that I was pregnant, I told her, and she was very supportive. So the convergence of motherhood and my career and moving up in my career really happened kind of right at the same time. And the same thing happened actually when I was pregnant with my second baby. I was literally on maternity leave, and the same boss who was very supportive, she offered me a promotion while I was on maternity leave with my second kid 4 years later. So
amazing.
Yeah. I wish all employers could be so understanding and know that, moms, sure, there's a lot of things we have to go through when we have babies, but we also can contribute to the workforce just as much as others. And she always had that faith in me, which was really great. And I think it actually in turn gave me faith in myself. Like she's not going to offer me this job if she doesn't think I can do it. And when you're having a baby, I think, you have a lot going on. There's a lot, you're juggling a lot of balls, and sometimes it doesn't quite feel like you can do it. So that was helpful. So that's one part of the story. But the second part of the story is that when I had my second baby, I went back to work and I was in a much more high powered position where I had a lot less time. I had a lot less privacy because I was running an outpatient mental health clinic during the height of the opiate epidemic. Although I think we've kind of stayed in that height for a while now. But it was kind of like as it was creeping up. And I was in some ways, I was in ground zero at the opiate epidemic. I worked in Kensington, Philadelphia, which has been, I don't know if you've seen in the news, but there was a lot of opiate use, a lot of opiate dealing happening right in the neighborhood I was working in. So I was running this clinic and I was already used to dealing with severe psychiatric issues, symptoms, problems. But then we kind of had this added layer of the opiate epidemic, and we kind of were seeing new things that we weren't quite experienced in. So people coming in, withdrawing from opiates, people coming in like nearly overdosing on opiates, all sorts of stuff, coming in asking for help, saying they wanted to get sober. Could we help them? So there was all these kind of things going on, and I was a new mom trying to pump and store breast milk amidst all of that chaos. And there was the added layer of that it was my responsibility to make sure that the unit ran effectively and people were getting the treatment and help they needed, made it all much more stressful to me. And so the idea for the product really came about because the room where we had our work refrigerator, which is often the status quo for pumping parents, is you usually store your milk in the work fridge, which I don't know, our work fridge, I see your face. Like, I don't know what the work fridges you've experienced have been like, but this one wasn't great.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's one of the biggest, like, unforeseen challenges, right? I feel like when you're going back to work as a new mom, one of the last things you're probably thinking about is, now where am I going to store it, right? It comes in real time as you're like facing this challenge of, okay, I'm trying to feed my baby. Now I'm pumped. I found a safe place to do that. Where do I put it? And you're faced with these options. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
I can only imagine.
Yeah. And nobody really thinks about it, right? Like, even as we have policy change and supporting pumping parents, you don't see anything in the policy about must provide a safe, clean space to store the milk after pumping. It's about the pumping itself that everybody thinks about. So in this facility, the fridge was not great. And it was also in the room where we did group therapy. So it was not appropriate for me to knock on the door to either put my milk in the fridge or to retrieve my milk. So there was that I didn't like. Another thing I really didn't like was just like kind of walking the halls with these see-through breast milk bottles, and like the few men that I worked with kind of being like, I have to talk to you about something, but I'll wait till you're done with that. I'd be like, it's not gonna, I'm not gonna spill it on you, or like, you're not,
it's not radioactive. We'll be okay.
It's not radioactive. You're not sexually harassing me by just talking to me while I hold breast milk bottles. So kind of just like there was no option to be discreet. Like, everybody kind of knew what I was doing, where I was storing it, when I was doing it, all that stuff. I didn't like that either. And then the last thing was that, like, sure, you can bring a cooler, but you have to bring a cooler. You have to bring ice packs. The cooler has really not the ones. So like a Yeti cooler has been reimagined and re-innovated, but like the coolers we use to store breast milk have not been innovated. I mean, they're based off of the cooler that was invented in like the 50s or the 60s. So not much has changed. There's not much guarantee that they keep your breast milk a safe temperature. For a long enough period of time.
Yes. Also. Right? Because I can imagine the hours you were working running this clinic were not always 9 to 5. You didn't always know exactly when you were going to get out of there or be able to get it into a refrigerator. So just having that peace of mind as well in terms of longevity of how long your breast milk will be safely stored is also another key component of that.
Exactly. Yep. And I definitely had those days where like I would get home and the ice packs would feel like they had melted and the breast milk wouldn't be quite the right temperature. And I definitely had nights. I mean, one of my most like memorable nights at the facility was like I had to stay till like 9 o'clock because somebody was having suicidal thoughts and I had to stay with them to make sure they're safe. And like, I think we had to get a support, like a family member to come like pick them up and make sure everything was okay. But I couldn't pump because I had to stay with the person the whole time.
Yeah.
But I remember once again, my really supportive boss, I think I like texted her and was like, my boobs are about to explode, but I think I'm going to get through this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think even my like husband was like texting me and was like, I hope you get home soon. Like the baby's hungry. Like he didn't have a bottle ready or something. I forget what the circumstance was, but it was stressful.
Yeah.
One of those lovely working mom experiences.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe you can talk to us a little bit about too, the mental strain that puts on you as well as a mom, right? Trying to provide financially and you're trying to provide physically nourishment for your baby. And you have kind of these unforeseen experiences or days in a job that really doesn't afford you much routine, right? I'm sure the execution is the same, but you're not really sure what you're going to see on a day-to-day. So what was the state of your mental health at that point? And kind of knowing that you're kind of the professional in this arena, were you able to kind of recognize some of that strain? And how did you support yourself through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say I think I'm open about sharing about this. I was a little bit of an adrenaline junkie.
Okay.
Yeah. So like when you work in high intensity environments like this, and it's not completely comparable, but I do think like, people who work in law enforcement or military personnel, like when they're in battle, stuff like that, like there is a process that happens in your mind and body where like you are getting these adrenaline surges when more intense, more chaotic, more dangerous things are happening. And each time you kind of find your way through one of those, you feel a little bit higher and you're like, well, what can I figure out now? Like,
okay,
some man walked in the building telling us he was all going to hurt us all. And I somehow talked him down and then got the police there in time and blah, blah, blah. And like, I feel so powerful. I feel like I can handle all these situations. So I don't think I was like quite aware that was going on while it was going on. But as I got more burned out from that job and was starting to think about exploring other careers within mental health, but ones with more balance and less intensity, I started to kind of examine that and like why that wasn't healthy for me, wasn't healthy for my children, wasn't healthy for my marriage. And luckily I'm in like a very supportive marriage and throughout the careers that we've had together as a couple, we've always been very honest with each other when we do think that the job is affecting our mental health or affecting the relationship, and hearing the other one say that and recognizing that and making a change when it's reached that level. Yeah. I think something about that though helped me dodge a little bit of the postpartum blues, I think.
Sure.
I think because I was like kind of in this other trajectory of like, rather than feeling down, you're going to feel like, not shy, but like you're going to feel excited every day because something new, something different, something unpredictable is going to happen. But I think it was just a different way of dealing and maybe avoiding the changes that you have to process when you do become a mom.
That's so interesting that you share that, because I think there's a couple of different ways that it can be experienced, right? Like, so I did not go back to work after I had my daughter, and I really felt in it. And it was probably a whole year that I was just really in now what could probably be diagnosed as some sort of postpartum depression, which went undiagnosed for me. And I can imagine that. So part of that for me was not feeling like I had something for myself anymore. So I can imagine going back to work in general, and then you add this extra layer of unpredictability or power, for lack of a better word, to your day, right? Of being able to navigate and just feeling really confident in your abilities and in another arena allows you to kind of ebb and flow with some of the other challenges in this like new part of your life of being a new mom and then a new mom to two and, you know, kind of navigating all that. So I can imagine that there's like a level of comfort in knowing that you haven't lost or, you know, misplaced all of these other capabilities that you had that helped you kind of through all of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny. I feel like I keep talking about this boss that I had. Her name's Lisa. She's lovely, but I think we both connected a lot on like the skill it took to do the job, that not everybody had the skill, and that it wasn't necessarily a skill that could be taught. I don't mean to say that in a narcissistic way, but a lot of it was like, can you navigate chaos, which is not exactly a learned behavior. Well, in some ways it's a learned behavior, but
sure.
I think there was just kind of this like instinctual skill set that both of us had. She was really great at that too, and navigating kind of intense situations. So I definitely felt like a confidence. I was definitely really tired though, you know, and probably suffering more than I was aware.
Sure.
Yeah.
How did you, this is just like my own personal curiosity, which is what a lot of these episodes are too. Like, how did you come down from that when you got home at the end of the night and you had, you know, experienced whatever it was that you had experienced? I imagine it's like probably similar to people who work, right? Like you said, law enforcement or military, but also like emergency rooms, you know, they see like crazy, you know, unforeseen things throughout the day that require like really fast acting responses. Like, how do you support yourself in coming down from that at the end of the day so that you are able to nourish yourself you know, come home to your kids, rest, recharge yourself for the next day? Like, how did you support yourself through that?
Yeah. I think it helped. Now that I do work from home predominantly, I know the drive home was always helpful. I had about a 30-minute drive home. And sometimes I think I would even listen to like Inya or something, or some like, you know, nature music, just something to like
For
really
sure.
keep me down, or get me down. I think sometimes it was definitely, and that's still always hard, that like everybody coming home from school or daycare and parents from work, and that kind of like fluster and chaos that happens right at first, where it's like hard for everybody to kind of get into a new rhythm. I would say something that I also would do, which is like, I think it's a form of nourishment, but like when the kids went down, I went down in a way. Like I would just turn on kind of silly TV and just like veg out quite a bit.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said for that. And there's, I think, always room for more permission for that.
Yeah.
Like there's everything and anything that's on the to-do list most likely can wait, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow is always another day. So and I always say that to myself too. Like my daughter goes to daycare 3 days a week. And so on the days that I have her all day, I'm also pregnant. I'm like, I give myself permission to take a nap. When she takes a nap, I take a nap, or I throw on something totally mindless on TV and I zone out. And I think there's something to giving yourself permission just to do that and let the to-do list wait until another day.
And I don't know how useful or productive you're going to be at like 8:30 after a full day of work, caring for kids, like, you know. Yeah. I agree.
So I'd love to know, I mean, kind of with that. So what point did you start recognizing like this burnout in this job that you had, and what, like identifying this product that you wanted to create, and how did you shift yourself into entrepreneurship? I mean, did you find the time to do that while you were still working? Did you make the break completely? Like, how did you get yourself from working into an entrepreneur role of building this product in this company?
Yeah, great question. It's a little long, a little convoluted, but I had the idea at this facility that I was working at. And I had applied for another job that was not direct clinical care. It was working for the Medicaid insurance provider of behavioral health services here in Philly. So a more administrative job.
Okay.
And I can't, to be honest, I cannot remember if I was still at the old job when we kind of started to like talk to an engineer about like what this would look like if we were to make the product. You know, I had this idea, like I want to make a Swell water bottle for breast milk.
Yeah.
So I can't quite remember if it was at the old job or in the new job, but it was like the two were close. Like it was like either right at the end of this one job or right at the beginning of this new job. Yeah, and I'd say the last year at that old job, I knew the end was coming. Like I knew I had done it for 5 years. Like I think before me, not to toot my own horn again, but before me, the people who had been directors had lasted like less than a year, and I think I almost made it 5 years. So I felt proud that I had done that work, and I just couldn't see like if I were to stay in clinical care, the extremity would only be increasing, not decreasing. So for me, it was like, let me just try something different. See if I can sit behind a desk and computer all day and if that works for me. And it actually did in many ways, because then I had much more work-life balance at the next job. Like there was no staying there till 9 o'clock when your boobs are exploding. There was like, no, like I worked for the government and it worked technically for the city, but so like you leave at 5, like there's no overtime. Nobody's walking.
Doors closed.
Doors closed.
Gotta go.
Yep. Doors locked, phone is off. So it actually, there was something serendipitous about that because it allowed me to explore this entrepreneurship thing. But I would say I was not an entrepreneur for many years after that because it took us so long to research and develop the product. Like we started working with engineers. We made a works like prototype. So it functions like the product, but doesn't look like the product. Then we had to find a new engineer to make it beautiful. Then we had to raise money, like to manufacture it. So like it wasn't until 5 years later that I really got to feel what it felt to be 100% an entrepreneur. And I think I say this a lot, but the entrepreneurship has like a very good parallel to running a mental health clinic during the opiate epidemic. Like I never would have thought that, but the intensity is less dangerous. Like
sure,
nobody's
but resourcefulness.
Yes, but the resourcefulness is there. Nobody's walking into the building with a knife or anything like that. But that like, you're keeping up this very fast pace. You kind of have to be aware of all the things going on at one time. You have to be resourceful. You have very limited funds to work with. So there's a very good parallel to entrepreneurship and like, managing a mental health clinic, which I am surprised in some ways, but I guess it makes sense in others.
Absolutely. And I think there's like also something to be said for kind of the timeline that you kind of went on to get to this point, right? There's this kind of trust in that the pivot that you made to this desk job may or may not be the right one, but you're going to try it out and see if it affords you kind of what it is that you're looking for. Work-life balance, the ability to think other things through. And I think it's remarkable and just worth noting the timeline, right? These, Mike, from what you described, I would guess 7-8 years, maybe longer from conception of this is a problem to having like an actual marketable product that you've engineered and developed and can put actually out to market to customers is not a small amount of time.
No. We were like 5.5 years from, I think, 5.5, almost 6 years from conception to hitting the market.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the timeline also worked because I did try that work-life balance thing. And apparently that doesn't agree with me. Because I was like, I'm bored. Like, what do you mean we get to leave now? Or what do you mean my lunch is an hour long and nobody's going to run into the room and say somebody just injected themselves with heroin in the bathroom and you have to go help them. Yeah. So there was a little bit of
different.
It felt very different. I remember at first I got used to it eventually, but I remember at first being like, I don't know if I can handle this. Like, I feel a little bored. But it was interesting that job started out real, like, kind of level. Like, I was on a really well-resourced team. We had sufficient staff. And then something started to happen there where, like, we lost team members and we had this huge project and, like, the intensity started to increase. And it was right as we were getting ready to go to market. And, my co-founder, who's also my husband, we were like, well, I think it might be time to leave the full-time job, launch this product, and actually, like, fully jump into Pippy Sips,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Talk to me a little bit about working with your husband. I feel like there's some really great, like, opportunities there and some other opportunities for growth, I can imagine. Talk to me a little bit about that. I love that. I love that you guys get to do that.
Yeah, we did. And we didn't quite plan it out that way. Like, it was like an Amberlee idea and my husband wanting to support me. And then, I think I'm pretty good at, like, convincing him to do things he doesn't necessarily want to do. I would say, like, more positive risk. Like, I don't mean that in, like, a jumping off a cliff kind of way, but more like jumping off the emotional cliff. So we didn't quite plan it out that way, but then every step of the way, it's like he was working with me and wanted to be a part of it. And it's definitely had its, like, drawbacks. It can make coming down from the day very, very hard because we still want to talk about it at 8:30 at night as we're, like, lying in bed and we should be turning on a show or reading our books and starting to wind down. So we've had to really learn how to define what the boundaries are and when to talk about work. For a long time, we didn't silo our work. We were both kind of just, like, helping however we could, and we didn't have clear roles. So we were in an accelerator program where the one gentleman, Aaron Sorosa, I'll give him a shout out. He had a ton. He's a businessman, but he also had a history of being I believe a psychologist. So he had kind of this twofold expertise, and he worked really hard with us on defining what our boundaries were and defining what our roles were so that we didn't step on each other's toes. And that was, like, beyond helpful. Like, I think the two most helpful things were, when do you stop talking about work? What's the cutoff? And what are your roles? Like, what does Amberlee do and what does Joe do? And once we kind of figured that out, that helped a lot. And then we have fun together. We love the business. We love the product. And we like to bounce ideas off each other. I think we're both, my role is the more creative side, but Joe is also a very creative individual. So we bounce, ideas off each other a lot. And that can be a really fun thing. And it just feels good. It's like we brought our third child to the world. Like, once we launched Maya, we were like, the third baby has been born. Like, we felt really good.
As you should. I mean, that is an amazing feat in and of itself. And I would love to know kind of what advice you have for women who are looking to kind of create, whether or not it's a partnership with a partner kind of on a work product, but, like, bring something to life for themselves, whether it's a service business or a product business. What advice do you have for those women who are looking to start this process?
I mean, I always say, just, like, go for it. Like, you think you have a crazy idea. And that's when I first had this idea, I was like, oh my God, this isn't real. This isn't going to come to fruition. And my brother-in-law, who had just graduated business school, was like, no, that's like exactly how products and services come to the world. It's like somebody has the problem, it happens to them, and they have this wild idea, and then they have the persistence and the grit to make it come to reality. And I've talked to, I love in the female entrepreneur and female identifying entrepreneur community to talk to either other women who are farther along than me so they can kind of give me that inspiration. But my door is always open to new entrepreneurs too. Like I've set up meetings with people that I set up a meeting. This woman from Holland reached out and was like, I read your story. I'm really inspired. And she already had like a huge bit, like her business was farther along than mine, but there was something about the story and specifically raising investment funds that she was like, I would love to talk to you. And I'll be honest, at first I was like, I don't know, is this like, who is this person? What if this is like some scam or something? I'm being like
sure,
a jaded adult about it.
A little skeptical.
Yeah, a little skeptical. But I met with her and she was fabulous. And she was just as inspiring to me as I hope I was to her. I also met recently with like a friend of a friend who had an idea for a product, and she's had the idea for years. And she was like, it's like an itch I can't scratch. And I was like, scratch it. Start scratching. Like, yeah,
go for it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. How did you find, because I love the concept of women supporting women, right?
Yeah.
There's room for everybody at the table, and there should be, right? Women who are further along should be welcoming in women who are starting the process. And I love the openness that you have to others who are just starting out and, reaching out to others who are further along than you. And I think there's something to be said for that, and just getting each one of us further along in these dreams that we have. There's room for everyone. How did you find those women or that community? Was it through the accelerator? How did you kind of decide that that was the path for you?
Yeah. Well, Philly has a great startup ecosystem. And it's pretty small. So I will say this funny thing happens when you're like in Philly and you're a female entrepreneur, which is like usually like some businessman or investors like, I met this other female entrepreneur. Because we're so rare.
You must know her. Yeah, you must know her.
Or if you don't know her, I'm going to introduce you, and you'll have this like great bosom buddy relationship.
Sure.
So, and that actually, as weird as that is for the man saying that, that has actually resulted in some really good relationships. The first accelerator that we were in, there was a woman who was like, I don't know what the exact measurement of the steps were, but she's like 10 steps ahead of us. Like her product was already in market. Yeah. And she was more than willing to be like a mentor and a support and to give me advice. I actually was just thinking today, I was like, I have a question for her. I need to text her. And she'll pick up the phone and like talk to you. Like if you text her a question, she'll just call you and be like, okay, let me answer this. And then kind of a little bit, Philadelphia ecosystem is small, especially for female entrepreneurs. So I've tried to branch out beyond Philadelphia to kind of get some different experiences. So shout out to Jasmine Garnsworthy of Female Founder World, which has a Geneva chat.
Amazing.
You have to apply to be in it. But even if you they don't have room right now, or you apply and you're waiting to hear, her podcast is really great. And she talks to female entrepreneurs. But the Geneva chat is really helpful because there's other women in there who are in the thick of it right now. So you'll be like, oh, what email marketing system are you using? Or has this ever happened to you in business? Or it's just like a very, very good resource. I'm trying to think. I feel like there was some other place that I started to branch out in.
We can always link it if it comes to you later.
Yeah. But Female Founder World I checked that. This is less female oriented, but it's more parent tech oriented. I'm part of like a parent tech community that this woman Charlotte started. And once again, you have to apply to be part of the community, but they usually accept people, and then you're part of like a Slack channel where you can ask questions. You're part of a monthly newsletter, and Charlotte's just like a really good resource to reach out to. So
amazing. Yeah. And it sounds like it's ever evolving, right? It's like as your needs evolve and the business needs evolves, like your connections will take you where you ultimately need to go. And I think that's the biggest, or one of the biggest lessons of like this whole process of starting a business is trust and put yourself out there, right? Just do it. I can imagine a little bit of, maybe not for you as an adrenaline junkie, but I imagine there's a little bit of fear, right? Taking this pivot into something completely unknown that you haven't done, right? Producing a product and marketing it and selling it to parents, is a little bit different than the, healthcare world that you were in for so long. So I can imagine there's a little bit of fear in that, and
a lot of fear.
Just doing it and just starting the process and trusting that if your people say, if someone says no at first, someone will say yes. Your people are there.
Yes. And fear is like totally a part of entrepreneurship. I think I experience fear most days of the week. Maybe that relates to the adrenaline part, but there's still, because with entrepreneurship, actually much like there's just unpredictable things that happen and unexpected things that happen and new things you have to learn every week or every day sometimes. And, you just like, you have to be willing to feel the fear, but also to have the courage at the same time.
I love that. Did you ever have a moment where you started Pippy Sips and you thought maybe this wasn't it? Maybe this wasn't the path? Or were you always pretty discerned in the fact that this product needed to come to market and you were the one to do it?
I always felt that way. I think the only times that I hesitated was like when we would just hit these barriers where you never knew how you were going to get past it. So like right before we were supposed to manufacture the product, like we could not find the money. Like nobody wanted to give us money. We were a pre-revenue business, so we're not getting a small business loan. We are a female-founded femtech business, so no VCs really wanted to hear us. Like, at that, like women are raising under 2% of the VC dollars. And we didn't know how to talk to VCs either. Like I still don't know how to talk to investors. It's a whole different world. It's a whole different like way of talking and being. And I say this often, I feel like investors often talk a language that I just don't speak. Or like when we did manufacture our product, but they manufactured part of it wrong. And we literally had emailed our customers saying the product's coming. And then we had to email them and be like, never mind. So it was those points where it's never that I didn't feel it needed to come to market or that I was the wrong person. It just was do I really have the chutzpah? Do I really have the grit to get us there?
Yeah. How did you teach yourself to an extent, right? How to talk to venture capital companies? Like, how did you get to the point where you, I don't know, maybe walked through the door anyway to talk to investors without real understanding of that language? Because I think that's a big barrier for a lot of women who just feel under-equipped or not ready or not good enough or not educated enough to say, I'm worthy of being in this door.
Yeah. I don't know if I think I'm still learning. I think at this point I've decided that true venture capitalists are not who I'm going to go to when we really want to raise millions of dollars. I rather go to an angel investor that has heart in what we're doing. If it's a VC firm, I really want it to be a VC firm who is dedicated to diversity and inclusion and female founders, or dedicated to femtech, so that it isn't, not only do I not speak the language that they speak,
Yeah.
but that they speak the language I speak, which is, women have bodies and women make breast milk and they need to know what to do with that milk. And that's actually really important, just as important as AI. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm sure a lot of people would probably argue with me about that, but I just like, I need you to have the value system that I have so that we're not in and I've gotten into that argument with investors, not true VCs, but in these like pitch competitions I've done where they're like, why is this important? Like, women can just use a fridge. My daughter uses a fridge. Like, what's the big deal here?
Well, your daughter has no other option.
Right. Yes.
So of course she uses the fridge.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's so funny. I mean, I can imagine if I just put myself in your shoes in those conversations, like I feel like I would be the wrong person because I could just feel like the heat climbing my back. Like I would be so mad.
Yes.
Like, do you want to tell your daughter just to stay home and do nothing and never work again because like her role is providing for her baby?
Right.
I don't think you would say that to your daughter. I think you would tell her that she is worthy of everything that she could ever want.
Yeah.
That's so frustrating. I would lose it.
Including a beautiful product that tells her the temperature of her breast milk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do have a hard time because I'm an emotive person. So like, I crumble under I've gotten better, but I was at a pitch in November, ending this accelerator program. And these two women who were pitching, they make a mask for your vagina. It's called like a muff mask. And they're a sex positive brand, making sexual wellness products. And oh man, I forget what the guy asked, but some male investor type asked some kind of question that was a little bit in line with what we're talking about. And the response that specifically one of them gave back were just, I was like, like she just like cut through it like so quickly and just and you could tell she was emotional, but she also just hit the argument in the right point where he looked like a dummy, not her. And in this same pitch, I got a question and I didn't do great with it because I think I was feeling angry and a little emotional, but the gentleman asked me, and it might have been the same person, asked me, well, a woman's only going to buy one of these. So how are you going to build like a sustainable business model? And when I came out of the pitch, like 5 people came up to me, men and women, and were like, that was such a stupid question. Like, who buys one of something? Caskets. This woman, she was like, people die and you only buy one casket for their body, but what
you only need
business.
One.
Yeah. Yeah. Or like somebody else was like, Dre makes the Beats headphones. People don't buy 8 pairs of those. They buy one pair. It's a very nice pair of headphones. Like,
yeah, it's supposed to last a long time.
Yeah.
There's a market for that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
More than sustainable business model. Yeah. And I wish I had the data I have now because we're seeing like, 30% of our customers are returning to buy another one, either for themselves or for somebody else. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I can also imagine that there's like a need for it in different situations. Like I imagine a partner could maybe need one. Like maybe they need to transport breast milk because they're with the baby that day and they're, going on a car ride to grandma and grandpa's and, the mom's not coming. And, I could imagine that there's a need for that. And I think those kind of anecdotes speak to just the challenges that female entrepreneurs have in general, but also in this motherhood space, this parenting space of having to get past some of these preconceived notions and stories that it's just mom stuff. It's just at home. It hasn't infiltrated the external world yet. And I think it's just really remarkable that we're still having those conversations and we haven't made more progress in this space. So I really applaud you for doing that and sticking it out. And I'm trying to decide if I ask you another question right now or if we just give you some time to talk about the product, because I want to make sure we do that. But
people can always go to the website to look at the product too. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the product, and I think there's something to be said about taking that mental load off of a mom who is also working. And I want to talk, let's do that. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of experience that you've had. Kind of, you had this supportive boss, right? You were able to kind of go through your day to day as best as you could, with pursuing your goals. How do you, like, what advice do you have for women who are like going back to work, they're pumping, perhaps their environment is not as conducive to this growth for themselves, nourishing their baby. There is no pumping space. Maybe we're in the argument of, if you can still work, you're still owed compensation, that sort of stuff. So what advice do you have for women who are navigating all of that and they're just trying to figure out what their, maybe not rights are, but what they can expect, what they can, as a baseline expect to have in terms of support in this journey?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's really important to know, especially as policy changes. So when I had a baby, Obamacare had just been enacted, which did have a clause about providing a safe, clean space for employees to pump. And now, we're like 11 years later, we have the Pump Act that more clearly defines what your rights are and what the employer is supposed to do. So I do think actually knowing that stuff is really important. And I think, just as you said earlier in the podcast about you figure this stuff out in real time, not that it's wrong to do that, but if you can do some research ahead of time, especially in the world we live in now. So like 11 years ago when I had a baby, Instagram was like newish. Like, I feel like a dinosaur saying that, but it felt new. It wasn't, there just wasn't, a space hadn't been cultivated the way it is now that I see in the mom sphere, which is there's really great people, brands to follow, organizations to follow that will literally like give you daily advice. Like you could open up Instagram and it will be like, make sure you block out time in your schedule at work for 10 to 15 minutes of pumping. Make sure that's clear in your schedule. Like that advice is actually much more readily available versus I had to do a little bit more work with that stuff and like ask my friends who had babies or ask my family members who had babies for advice. Although I still recommend that. Like I just got an email today from a cousin who was asking about pumps and was like, I hear you're the expert in pumps, which I was like, I kind of am, but I'm also a dinosaur. And
it's been a little while. Yeah.
I was like, they didn't have wearables when I was pumping, so you should probably get into those. But rely on your mom community, whether that is like real people or it's, in a social media sphere. I actually find those spaces, there are dangers in social media, sure, but I do find the mom spaces to be very safe, very informative, very like evidence-based. You can find people, midwives who have channels. So they're telling you evidence-based information. You can find gynecologists who have channels that are going to give you evidence-based information. You can find blogs that will come, or even Substack. I love Emily Oster's Parent Data Substack.
Yeah.
It's delivered almost daily and gives you things to think about that you probably would have not thought about or even or had the time to do the research that she does.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think there's just, luckily, I think the world is like more embracing of moms and there's more resources that are more readily available. But also in the age of information, know when to shut it all down. Like,
Totally. Yeah. Totally. I think that, there's also this account called the Mom Attorney. Mm-hmm. The Mama Attorney. I'm blanking on the name of the woman who runs it.
Yep.
Super helpful in terms of going back to work and your rights. And I think there's also this like confusion and maybe unwillingness to like believe that your employers are not on your side necessarily. Like HR is not the place to go. And I've learned so much through following her in terms of they're not the most like, I don't want to say accurate source. HR is not the most reliable source for you as an individual because they're focused on what that means in terms of resources needed from the company, right? Like that's their focus. So I think you're right. Having this mom community to ask who's done something like this before, what do you need to know? How do you navigate this challenge that you're having at the office, and kind of leaning on that is huge. Just asking the questions and then feeling empowered to speak up for yourself, because prior to this age of information, you just had a feeling. Yeah. And those feelings were definitely disregarded. Yeah. Well, you just feel that way. It's not true.
Right. Exactly.
We don't have to start that. We don't have enough time on this episode. But yeah. Information is power. But also
it really is.
Can exhaust you. So yes, shut it down. Know when to take a break. Put the mindless TV on and just relax.
Exactly.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I want to wrap up here, but I want to give you just a couple of minutes to talk about how our listeners can engage with you and with Pippy Sips and order the product. How can they find it?
Yeah. So you can visit our website, which is www.pippysips.com. Please sign up for our newsletter. You'll get a 15% discount on your first purchase. Also, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok. We just opened a Threads account.
Love it.
Facebook. Still figuring out the Threads account I'm just going to call myself the dinosaur today. But please engage with us. We love, send us a DM if you have questions about the product. We'll answer them.
I love it. And we'll make sure to link all of those in our show notes and on the blog on our website. And I am excited because I plan on getting one, maybe two for myself in this journey post birth. We'll hope that goes well. You never know. So to have a product that takes the mental load off of where am I going to store it? How am I going to get it home? Is it going to be safe for my baby to ingest and eat is huge. So thank you so much for sharing your story and powering through these 7 years of creating this product, or 5 years, and getting it into market, because I think it's huge.
Thank you so much. This was great.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you liked what you heard, please help us out and leave a review wherever you listen, and consider sharing with your friends. If you're interested in learning a bit more about the project or want to share your story, please visit our website linked in our show notes below.